My brother humiliated me in front of 30 relatives at my parents' anniversary dinner, saying this table is for real sons, not leftovers. Everyone laughed. Minutes later, every payment at his end failed. Then the waiter returned with the bill, looked straight at him, and said something that killed the room. My brother stood up at our parents' 35th anniversary dinner, raised his glass to 30 relatives, and said the line he would spend the rest of his life trying to take back. This table is for real sons, not leftovers. The room laughed, 60% of it. My Aunt Adelaide stopped first. She set her glass down without looking at me. My fork hit the porcelain. A sip of water. Brennan was allowed to finish his toast. 53 minutes later, his last card came back. By the time we left the Bluebird at Foothills that night, my stepmother had knocked her chair over without noticing. My father had said one word in a voice no one in that room had heard in 30 years, and a waiter named Andre Sutton had become the most important stranger of my brother's life. My name is Elliot Hargrove, 36 years old. The version of me my family kept in their heads, the quiet leftover at the end of the table, died that Friday night in November, between the salad course and the bill. The job matters, because the job is the weapon. I am a private wealth and trust officer at First Carolina Trust in downtown Asheville. 9 years there. The work is simple. Read amendments. File revocations. Tell families what their dead relatives decided about them on paper. I pay my own rent. I drive an old Subaru. The middle gray suit went to the anniversary. That was the whole picture my family had of me, and they were satisfied with it. Calm. Quiet. A man with nothing. What none of them knew was that 2 days before that dinner, Cordelia Sinclair in the office 2 doors down from mine had set 3 folders in front of me. I had signed each one. Then I had driven home and made pasta and slept 8 hours. Welcome back to Family Secret Tales, where ordinary families face the moment that decides who they really are, and the people they underestimated finally get the last word. If stories about quiet justice and earned dignity stay with you, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and let the next one find you. My biological mother was named Eleanor. She died when I was 4. 14 months later, my father remarried. Vivienne Locke came to the wedding with a 6-year-old nephew named Garrett and the unspoken plan to redo the kitchen by the end of the month. She did. Brennan was born the next year. He got the second bedroom upstairs, the one with the bay window. My move went down to the basement. There was a fold-out couch and a window at ground level that looked at the gravel by the propane tank. My father called it the big boy room. I was 5. The basement room held me until college. What follows is not every small humiliation of those 22 years. It is the 5 that explain the night of the dinner. 1. Christmas Eve when I was 9. My grandfather had sent me a wrapped present from his auto parts wholesale, a small toolbox with my initials stamped on the lid. Brennan was 4. He grabbed it off the tree before I came downstairs and unwrapped it at the kitchen table. By the time I got there, the wrapping was on the floor, and Brennan was sitting on the lid with the tools spread around him. My father said, "He's little, Elliot. Don't make a thing of it." Vivienne picked up the wrapping. The toolbox stayed in Brennan's room until he lost interest in it. I never saw it again. 2. The summer I was 12, my parents took Brennan and Garrett and Vivienne to the beach for a week. They left me at home with $40 in an envelope and a list of chores. "We thought you'd want the quiet time, son," my father said. I had not been asked. That week happened at my grandfather's auto parts wholesale on East Sweeten Creek, sweeping floors, reshelving alternators, eating cheese sandwiches in his office. He paid me $120 on Friday in an envelope of his own and slid it across the desk. "Your wage. Don't tell anyone what you do for work." The promise held for 24 years. 3. My freshman tuition bill arrived at the house in August before I left for college. $6,000. I had a job lined up to cover it. The envelope was open on the kitchen table when I came in from the yard, and Vivienne was reading it. She looked up and said, "Your father and I have decided we can't help with this, sweetheart. Brennan's school costs are going to be a real strain in a few years." Brennan was 8. The tuition was already paid that morning by a wire from my grandfather. I did not tell her. The bill went back into the envelope, and the envelope went into my backpack, and Vivienne never mentioned it again. 4. The night of my high school graduation, my parents threw Brennan a 10th birthday party. Same night. They had not noticed the calendar conflict, Vivienne said. They gave me a card with $20 in it. 2 months later, when Brennan turned 11, they put a used Mercedes convertible in the garage to wait for his learner's permit. Vivienne walked me out to it at Thanksgiving. Don't be a sourpuss. You had your turn. 5. 2 years ago, Brennan signed my name on the co-signer line of a $38,420 car lease. He had my social security number because my father had given it to him. The dealership called me 3 weeks later about a late payment. I drove down, paid the back due, refinanced the lease in my own name to protect my credit, and made the payments for 9 months until Brennan finally paid back the $4,237 he owed. That last number is going to matter again. 4,237. Neither parent ever heard about the lease from me. My grandfather did. He found a line item on a bank statement I had left on his kitchen table by accident. He read it twice, folded it, and slid it back across the table. That night on the porch, he asked me one question. Elliot, do you know what I do with the people who steal from me? I shook my head. I let them. Once, and then I make sure they can never do it again. His name was Bennett Hargrove. Everyone called him Ben. He had started Hargrove Auto Supply in 1971 with 2 employees and a borrowed truck. By the time he sold it, the company had 21 employees and contracts with every independent mechanic from Boone to Brevard. Everything from the sale went into one instrument, the Bennett Hargrove Family Trust. He amended it 11 times. The 11th amendment was signed in his hospital bed at Mission Hospital 4 days before his second stroke. Cordelia Sinclair from First Carolina drove out personally with a notary. His right hand had been useless since 2019. He signed with his left. Cordelia witnessed it. He died on a Tuesday in March. Every Sunday for 15 years. My Subaru turned into his driveway in Montford at the same time. The porch was where we sat from May to October. The front room from November to April. He would have already poured 2 cups of coffee by the time I got out of the car. He drank his black. Mine had cream because that was how I drank it at 16, and he never asked again. We talked about whatever he had read that week. He read newspapers. He read the trade journals from when he had still been in the auto parts business. After the strokes, he started reading slower. He told me he was rereading books he had read in the 70s and finding things in them he had missed the first time. He said, "You do not see most of a book the first time you read it." He said the same was true of people. The Sunday that mattered came 3 weeks before he died. I had told him on the phone the day before that I was going to be late. A trust client had wanted to meet on a Saturday, and the meeting had run long. He said, "Come whenever you can." When I got there, the coffee was on the kitchen counter, both cups poured but cold. He was sitting at the desk in the front room, with the green ledger open in front of him. The afternoon light came through the window behind his shoulder. He had not been able to write much by then. His left hand shook on the pen. He looked up and said, "Sit down, son. I want you to see something." I sat. He turned the ledger 90 degrees so it faced me. The page was page 11. The handwriting was older. The header read distributions, discretionary, revocable. The name below it was Brennan's. The most recent entry was from the previous month. Apartment, South Slope, 8th floor. Monthly disbursement to landlord, $4,237. I stared at the number. He watched me stare at it. He said, "That same number, isn't it?" I nodded. A man takes from his brother once. That is family. He takes from his brother twice and lets his brother pay for it. That is something else. He closed the ledger. He pushed it to the side of the desk. One day, You are going to be the trustee of this. The clause activates on your 36th birthday. You will know what to do. His left hand reached for his coffee, which was cold by then. He drank it anyway. We moved to the porch for the last hour. The light was going by the time I left. He stood at the screen door and waved once. That was the last time he was on his feet when I saw him. He died 19 days later. The will reading came 6 months after the funeral. Theodore Pruitt's office on Patton Avenue. October, the house in Montford went to Brennan. He straightened up in his chair so fast the leather creaked. The remaining stake in the auto parts business, valued at $1,840,000, went to my father. He did not move. The cash savings, $293,000 and change, went to Vivienne. Her hand went to my father's arm and squeezed. Theodore turned the page and looked at me. To my grandson Elliot Hargrove, I leave the contents of Safe Deposit Box 1106 at First Carolina Trust and the sum of $10. The room went still. Then Brennan laughed. He slapped the table with the flat of his palm. $10 in a pile of paper. He really did love you, Eli, he really did. Garrett laughed with him. Vivienne laughed second. My father looked at his lap. Theodore slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a single-folded $10 bill. No key. The box was already at the bank where I worked. Outside Theodore's building, Brennan caught up with me on the sidewalk. No hard feelings, brother. I'll throw you a bone if I sell the Montford house. Maybe a piece of the porch furniture. He put his hand on my shoulder when he said it. I drove 4 blocks to the bank. I signed the vault log. I opened box 1106. 3 things sat inside. A 22-page document. The 11th Amendment to the Bennett Hargrove Family Trust, dated and notarized. A small black notebook with 1 entry. Page 11 of the Green Book. Read carefully. Take your time. The boy in the basement was the one who came up every Sunday. A black Pelican fountain pen with the initials BH at the clip. I took all 3 home. I locked the door. I opened the green ledger. Page 11 was familiar. I had seen it 3 weeks before Bennett died. The next page was new to me. It covered the platinum card. Monthly average $4,210. Annual total $76,800. The page after covered the personal expense line. Annual total $94,500. I added the 3 numbers in my head. $171,300. That was what Brennan spent in a year on a salary he did not have. The page after that was the trust language itself, copied out by hand, with 1 clause underlined. The trustee of the foregoing distributions, effective on the 36th birthday of Elliot Hargrove, shall be the said Elliot Hargrove, with full discretionary authority to amend, revoke, or terminate any and all disbursements set forth herein, without notice, without cause, and without recourse. My 36th birthday was 3 weeks and 4 days away. I closed the ledger. I went to bed at the regular time. I slept through the night. The first 3 days I did nothing. I went to work. I administered other families' trusts. I came home. I made pasta. I read. On Friday morning, my Aunt Adelaide called me. She had been Bennett's only sister, 63 years old, divorced for 15 years, living in Weaverville. We had not spoken since the funeral. Elliot, I want to come down and see you on Sunday. Can I bring lunch? She brought a thermos of chicken and dumplings and sat at my kitchen table for 2 hours. She had not been in my apartment before. Her eyes moved across the bookshelves the way someone moves through a museum. She picked up a paperback off the side table, read the back, set it down. She asked me 3 questions about the building. She asked me what I cooked on weekdays. Halfway through the meal, she set her spoon down. Your grandfather told me about the 11th Amendment 2 weeks before he died. He called me late at night, which he never did. The call was 11 minutes long. He told me when you were sitting in the room 3 weeks before then, when he showed you page 11. He told me you understood the number on the page before he had to explain it. He said he had been waiting 20 years for someone in the family to look at that page and not need it explained. She refolded her napkin. He told me you would file the paperwork yourself. on a Thursday, 3 weeks and 4 days after your birthday. He said you would not make a show of it. He said you would not call him before you did it, because you would not need to. She lifted her eyes to mine. I am telling you all of this now, because Brennan called me last night. He wanted to know if I knew the value of the Montford house. He wanted to know if I had time to meet his realtor next week. He said he was thinking of pivoting into investment property, and that Grandpa would have wanted him to. She set her hands flat on the table. He has already listed it. Asking price $475,000. He thinks the closing will fund what he calls his investment portfolio. He has not waited a single month after the will reading. Pasta got cold on my stove that afternoon. She stayed until 4. Before she left, she touched my hand once. Whatever you do, your grandfather would understand. He told me you would not flinch. He was right about you a long time before anybody else was. On the morning of my 36th birthday, a Tuesday, the office routine started an hour earlier than usual. Coffee from the break room. At 9 sharp, a knock on Cordelia Sinclair's open door. I would like to schedule a private appointment for Thursday afternoon. Her eyes lifted from the screen. He told me you would come in the week of your birthday, she said. Your file is ready. If a story about a quiet man and a paper trail has held you this long, I want to be honest about something before the bill arrives. I almost did not file the papers. Not because the trust language was unclear, and not because Bennett would have second-guessed it. Because 32 years of being the easy one do not turn off in a single afternoon at the office. There is a difference between being calm and being absent from your own life. I had spent most of mine on the wrong side of that line. What I did next, I would do again. But the part that mattered had not happened yet. If you have ever sat at a table and watched a brother be handed a future that was supposed to be earned, you already know how this room got quiet. Drop one word in the comments. Hit subscribe. The story gets harder from here. Thursday at 2, 3 folders waited on the conference room table. Revocation of authorized user on the American Express Platinum. The account holder was the Bennett Hargrove Family Trust. The card in Brennan's wallet would be valid through close of business that day. After that, the bank's fraud desk would flag any further attempt and route the merchant directly to the account holder of record. Termination of recurring disbursement on the apartment lease. The November payment, due on the 1st, would not process. The lease was in the trust's name, not Brennan's. The landlord would get an automated notification on Monday. Termination of the personal expense line. Same structure. Same effect. I signed each. Cordelia countersigned. She slid the folders to one side. Are you sure? Yes. Want to delay any of them? No. Let it all process tonight. She nodded. She walked the folders to the back office. The timestamp clacked through the open door. She came back and sat down. Your grandfather wrote me a letter the morning he signed the 11th Amendment. He asked that whatever you decided to do, I help you do it correctly. That would have happened anyway. But he asked. Thank you, Cordelia. She paused. One operational point you should know. The trust has standing instructions on the lease. If the disbursement terminates without a successor tenant in place, the property management company is contractually authorized to begin eviction proceedings on day 6. She let that sit. Brennan will have until Monday the 6th before the cure notice goes out. Then 5 days. Understood. One other thing. He said you would not make a show of it. He said you would do it the way he would have done it. Quietly and on a Thursday. She smiled for the first time. A small one. The anniversary dinner was the next evening. Friday at 5:30, I sat in the parking lot behind my building with the engine running. The ledger was on the passenger seat. The bill at the restaurant was going to come whether I was there or not. Driving past the restaurant and going home was an option. Pizza and rain on the windows of the apartment was an option. Bennett had not driven 35 Sundays a year for 30 years, just so I could hear about it secondhand. The gear shift went into drive. The Subaru pulled into the gravel lot at the Bluebird at Foothills at 6:42. Brennan's Range Rover was 3 spaces from the door, parked at an angle across 2 spots. Inside the door, the hostess took my coat. Vivienne was already in the entryway, talking to a cousin from Greenville about a vacation rental they had used in August. She saw me over the cousin's shoulder. Her face did the thing it had been doing for 30 years, the half-second pause, and then the wide hostess smile. "Sweetheart, we thought maybe you weren't coming. Sorry I'm late. Brennan's already given the first toast. You missed it." She turned back to the cousin without waiting for an answer. Adelaide was in a chair by the window, by herself with a glass of water. She lifted the glass an inch when I came in. I lifted mine when I sat down 4 seats away. The private dining room held 31 place settings. Brennan had put me at the far end, next to an empty chair that stayed empty all night. The first toast came during the bread course. He stood up with a glass of water and made a speech about the 2 best parents in the western half of this state. My stepmother put her hand on his arm. My father lifted his glass an inch and put it down. People clapped. Plates moved on. The second toast came after the salads were cleared. Brennan poured Cabernet for everyone within reach and stood up again at the head of the table, where my father usually sat, and where my father had ceded the seat without a word. 35 years, Brennan said. 35 years of 2 people who could have given up and didn't, who could have settled and didn't. A small ripple of approval. Adelaide folded her hands in her lap. "Now, this is a family table," he said, "and family tables are for family, real family, the kind that shows up, the kind that earns the seat." He raised his glass. "This table is for real sons, not leftovers." His eyes landed on me as the last word came out. 60% of the room laughed. Adelaide stopped first. My fork went down on the porcelain. I drank from my water glass and set it back down. Brennan grinned. He sat. I said nothing for the next 40 minutes. My father lifted his bread, then set it down without eating. Vivienne ate 1 carrot, then turned her wedding ring twice on her finger. Brennan ordered a second bottle. Garrett laughed too loud at something a great-uncle said. Across the table, my second cousin Marisol kept her eyes on her plate. She had been the only relative to send me a card after Bennett's funeral. At 8:12, Vivienne stood up to give her own toast. She thanked her husband. She thanked her son. She thanked her sister-in-law for hosting the rehearsal dinner 35 years ago. She did not thank me. She did not mention Eleanor. Adelaide's hands, folded in her lap, tightened. At 8:41. Brennan caught the waiter's eye and made the writing motion for the check. Andre Sutton brought the folder over and set it down at Brennan's right elbow. Brennan did not open it. He pulled the American Express Platinum from his wallet without looking and laid it on top. "All on this one," he said, loud enough for the whole end of the table to hear. He pushed the folder toward Andre without breaking eye contact with the cousin he was talking to. Andre took it. He went away. 4 minutes later he came back. He leaned down at Brennan's shoulder. His voice was quiet. "Sir, I'm sorry, this one didn't go through. Would you like to try another?" Brennan laughed. "Run it again. The chip is probably dirty." "I ran it twice, sir. Try a third time." "Not able to do that, sir. The bank declined the authorization." Brennan pulled a second card from his wallet. A black Visa with the same trust account stamp on the back. He laid it on the folder. "That one." Andre took it. Went away. The cousin to my right had stopped talking. Across the table, the great-uncle was looking at Brennan, then at the folder, then at Brennan again. Vivienne turned in her chair to face the head of the table. Her smile thinned. My father set down his bread roll and did not pick anything else up. At the far end, Adelaide had gone very still. She did not turn her head, but her eyes tracked Andre across the room. Marisol, across the table, had stopped eating. Garrett, 2 seats from Brennan, was checking his phone, then putting it down, then checking it again. 3 minutes. Andre came back. "Sir, I'm afraid this one too." Brennan's neck went red at the collar. "What kind of cheap restaurant is this?" "Both my cards." "Run them again." Not able to continue, sir. The bank has flagged the account. Flagged it for what? Andre did not answer. He kept his eyes on a point just above Brennan's left shoulder. Brennan dug into his wallet for a third card, a personal debit card from a different bank. He slapped it onto the folder. That one. That one is mine. Andre took it. Went away. The room had gone quiet. Not all of it. The far end was still on the volleyball conversation, but the 12 places around Brennan and the 8 places around me had all turned toward the head of the table. Vivienne reached for Brennan's arm. Brennan, sweetheart. Mom, it's fine. The chip reader's in this place. The manager is going to hear about this. Brennan, Mom. A great aunt on Vivienne's side, 81 years old, set her wine glass down and pushed it slightly away from her plate. She did not pick it up again that night. My hand stayed in my lap. The bag with the green ledger was on the floor between my feet. 4 minutes. Andre came back through the kitchen door. The folder was in his left hand. A small black wireless terminal was in his right. He did not stop at Brennan's shoulder this time. He walked the length of the table. He stopped behind my chair. The room went the rest of the way quiet. Mr. Hargrove, he said. Sorry to bother you. The bank says the cardholder needs to authorize this charge in person. He held up the terminal slightly. The screen was lit. The phone line was open. They have me on the line with him. He is at this table. Mr. Hargrove? He turned his head toward me. Every face in the room turned with him. A look at Brennan first. He was sitting very straight. The red had gone all the way up into his face. His left hand was flat on the table beside an empty wine glass. His right hand still held his wallet. His mouth was slightly open. A look at my father next. Not the sideways look he had given me for 32 years. A straight one. A turn back to Andre. Yes, I can authorize. The terminal passed across my shoulder. The bank's logo glowed on the screen. A woman's voice on the other end recited my name and an account number. Confirmed, declined the charge. Confirmed, sir. Have a good evening. The line closed. Andre took the terminal back. He stayed at my shoulder. Brennan's wallet was still in his hand. What is happening? I reached into my bag. The green ledger came up onto the tablecloth. I opened it to page 11. I slid it the length of the table toward him. It crossed 3 water glasses and a butter dish on the way. It stopped 4 inches from his right hand. The page was face up. The 11 entries were dated. The most recent line read apartment, South Slope, 8th floor. Monthly disbursement to landlord, $4,237. Total to date this calendar year, $46,607. The annual summary at the top of the page read $171,300. Brennan looked down at the page. He read for 10 seconds without moving. What is this? 4 words. It was never yours. Vivienne, behind him, stood up too fast. Her chair tipped backward. No one caught it. It hit the floor with a sound like a small door slamming. Brennan's hand went to the ledger. He turned the page. He saw the platinum entries. He turned again. He saw the personal expense line. Garrett, 2 seats from him, leaned over to look. He pulled back as soon as he understood the column header. He did not look at Brennan again that night. My father, who had not spoken once during the toast, or the laughter, or the cards, said one word in a voice the room had not heard in 30 years. Dad, he said it the way a son says it when his father has walked into the room. His eyes were on the ledger. Then they came up to mine. You knew, he said. 3 weeks before he died, you knew. I did not answer. Vivienne's voice came in higher than she meant. Robert, do something. He did not look at her. He kept his eyes on me. He never told me, my father said. The room held still for that. Then Brennan stood up. The ledger was still in his hand. His voice came at a volume that did not match the room. You think this is yours? You think Grandpa would have wanted this? Sit down, Brennan Adelaide. 2 seats away. She had not raised her voice. She did not need to. He sat. I closed the ledger. I lifted it off the table. It went back into the bag. $3,427 in cash came out of my wallet, counted out that morning at my own ATM, and went into the folder. 4 $20 bills came out separately and went up to Andre. Thank you for your patience. He took the bills. He stepped back. The bag went onto my shoulder. The length of the table passed under my feet. The door of the private dining room. The main dining room. The wooden steps. The gravel lot. The Subaru's lock had just clicked when footsteps came across the gravel behind me. Aunt Adelaide. No coat over her arm, no purse. She stopped 6 feet from me. Bennett told me about the Sunday 3 weeks before he died. He said you understood what he was asking of you. He said you did not flinch. She paused. Your father has been carrying that ledger in his head for 20 years. He just never had the courage to open it. The night your mother died, your grandfather drove to that hospital and stayed in the waiting room until morning. Your father went home with Vivienne's family. Bennett never forgot that. Tonight he would have said it was a 32-year repair, not a verdict. A nod. One more thing. Your stepmother is going to tell every cousin in that room that you did this for the money. By Sunday, it will be the version your father almost believes. So when you are ready, you call me, and I will tell every one of them what your grandfather told me. I have his letter. He left it with me the night before he signed the amendment. It has my brother's signature and the date. She turned around. She walked back toward the restaurant. The drive home took 14 minutes. The pasta from earlier in the week was still in the fridge. I ate it cold. The consequences mattered, so here is what came after. Brennan's apartment lease was a trust-held instrument. The November payment did not process. The property management company in South Slope sent the cure notice on Monday the 6th, addressed to the trust. The trust did not cure. Brennan was served on the 7th. He had 30 days. He moved out on the 9th of December into a one-bedroom rental in Hendersonville. The deposit ran $7,830. Vivienne covered it by selling her Tesla Model Y in a private sale on the 11th. The Range Rover lease was in his own name by then. Without the trust line, he could not cover $1,140 a month. He surrendered the vehicle voluntarily in the 3rd week of December to keep a repossession off his credit. He drives a 2009 Toyota Corolla now, bought cash for $3,800 from a private seller in Weaverville. Adelaide told me. The Montford house listing came down quietly the week after the dinner. Brennan had signed an exclusive listing agreement with a realtor named Pamela Hightower without informing the executor of his grandfather's estate, which was the trust. Theodore Pruitt sent a one-page letter to Pamela explaining the situation. The listing was withdrawn the same afternoon. Brennan owns the house now in full, but he cannot sell it without the trust's release of certain easements that Bennett had filed in 2008. Those releases require my signature. None has been requested. None will be given this year. Vivienne did exactly what Adelaide had warned. She told 2 cousins by Sunday afternoon that I had moved against my own brother for an inheritance. The Tuesday after the dinner, Adelaide drove to my father's house, sat on his porch for 40 minutes, and walked him through every Sunday Bennett and I had spent together for 15 years. She had brought the letter from Bennett with her. I do not know what was said. I know my father did not return Vivienne's calls for 3 days after that conversation. I know that Vivienne moved into the guest room on the 2nd floor of the Beaver Dam house in early December. She filed for legal separation in late January. According to Adelaide, she has not moved back, and the cousins she had been counting on as character witnesses stopped picking up her calls after Adelaide finished her rounds in mid-December. Brennan called me 4 times in the week after the dinner. I did not pick up. He sent one text, "We need to talk." I did not reply. The 5th call came from my father's number. I answered. He said one sentence. "He won't talk to you again. I made him promise." Thank you, Dad. That was the first time in 2 decades I had called him that on the phone. In January, on a Wednesday morning, I saw Brennan from across the parking lot of a hardware store on Sweeten Creek. He was getting out of the Corolla. He had a bag of drywall screws under his arm and was wearing a coat I had given him for Christmas 7 years earlier. He did not see me. He looked exactly like a man who was getting on with a smaller life. I did not feel anything in particular about it. I drove to work. My father wrote me a letter on the 14th of November. A long white envelope, my name on it in his handwriting. The envelope sat on my kitchen table for 3 months. In February, Adelaide brought me Bennett's Pelican fountain pen. She had been keeping it in a drawer in her own house for 6 months, until she judged the moment was right. She put the pen on my windowsill above the sink. Then she sat down at the table, picked up the white envelope, and held it out to me. I opened it that night. The letter was 4 pages. The first 3 were apologies. The 4th was 1 paragraph. Elliot, I knew about the basement room. I knew about the graduation party. I knew about the Range Rover. I never said anything because saying anything meant saying everything, and I was a coward. Your grandfather knew that about me. He never said it out loud either. He just made sure that when the time came, the right person held the pen. You were always the right person. I am sorry it took me 32 years to write it down. The trust continues. I administer it. No further distributions have gone to Brennan, and none are planned. Adelaide drives down most Saturdays. She brings lunch. We sit at the same kitchen table. My father has called twice. Once in March, once in April. Both times we talked for less than 10 minutes. Neither of us mentioned Vivienne. Adelaide says that will take longer. Adelaide says most things take longer than people think they will. May, 6 months after the dinner. A Saturday morning at 6:15. The green ledger sat closed on the counter with a butter knife on top of it because the cover had warped slightly in the summer humidity. The Pelican was on the windowsill above the sink where Adelaide had left it in February. The receipt from the Bluebird sat on the kitchen table beside the white envelope from my father. Now opened, now read. I picked up the pen. I uncapped it. I opened the ledger to the first blank page. The date went at the top in my own handwriting, which slants slightly where Bennett's never had. Below the date I wrote 1 line. Adelaide for lunch. Chicken and dumplings. Nothing else. I closed the book. The pen cap went back on. The pen went back to the sill. Outside, the light came up the rest of the way over the ridge. A dark green ledger written in fountain pen ink. A toast that named me what I was not. A bill quietly paid and never thrown away. That's my story. 1 anniversary dinner, 1 waiter who turned at the right shoulder, and a grandfather who wrote down 23 years of the truth before anyone thought to ask him for it. If this reminded you that the quietest person at the table is very often the one who saw the whole game first, take that as your sign tonight. Call the family member nobody else calls. Open the envelope you have been afraid to read. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.